Hello and welcome to the Scholar Progenium. Today we're going to be looking over Bolt Action's latest FAQ and errata, which was released by Warlord Games earlier this week, and let me tell you gents, it's certainly an interesting one. Now, I'm not going to go into every single detail, explore all the nooks and crannies of this FAQ. Instead, I want to look at the information that's going to affect your everyday Bolt Action player and also some of the interesting tidbits for those of you who like to go to tournaments and competitive events. And it gets straight off the bat with an interesting one. As we can see here, now for all armies, trucks, utility cars, artillery tractors and horse-drawn limbers are available. And, at first glance you may think, no big deal. But the trucks is the first thing I want to talk about. And that is the fact that they're, of course, able to be upgraded with an MMG. Which for people who play Germany, America, Britain, whatever, you may think, whatever, no big deal. But for those of you who run minor factions, such as myself, I run Finnish, then this is actually totally clutch because we previously didn't have access to MMGs on our trucks. And taking an MMG on a truck is a really good bonus to having a truck. It lets it take part in the fight, of course, and not just be totally vulnerable. So, for Greek players, Finnish players, and other minor factions that didn't have that ability, that's super cool. And then also, glancing past the other stuff down to the horse-drawn limber. Now, this is an interesting addition for plenty of armies that didn't have it before. And if you're not aware, the horse-drawn limber, as you can see there, it's 8 points inexperienced, 10 points regular, and 12 points for a veteran. Now, this is not the kind of unit that I take every game by any means. And if I'm going to an event and there's a dice limit, then I'm not going to take it either because I need those dice, like 12 dice for the important stuff that's going to kill the enemy and take objectives, that kind of thing, score me points. But if there's no dice limit on the game, then 8 points for taking a little horse, like for my Finns, I'm going to get a couple of reindeer. And that's going to be really cool. That's a really competitive choice to take. Now, not is it a nice competitive trick to have in the bag for a minor faction, and that gives a buff that those minor factions deserve on a competitive level. But it's also cool for anybody who just maybe plays Bolt Action with a friend, a sibling, something like that. You've got a small group of friends getting into Bolt Action, because I've always found part of the fun of getting into a new gaming system with my mates is kind of the arms race that comes with that. And this may just be my perspective. I've grown up with a brother, so there's always been that sort of slightly competitive element between us, wanting to one-up each other. You guys know I have my brother Tim, Mordy and Glory, who we've wargamed together for decades. But my perspective on that is I just love finding those little tricks when I'm getting into a new game system and sort of bring them out onto the battlefield, and then your mate's like, oh, what? And then, next game they pull something out of the bag and counter you, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about this? And, that's part of the fun of it sometimes. So, if you're looking to one-up one of your mates, get yourself a horse-drawn limber, get yourself a reindeer if you're Finnish, maybe that's certainly what I'm going to do. And pull that one out the bag. And we're going from that straight into another really interesting update, this time for the armies of Germany. Now it's targeting the armoured cars, the SDKFZ 221, 222, 223, and of course also the 250/9. Now I think this is really targeted at the 222, and I'm going to explain my reasoning behind this in a second. But what the update is that they no longer count as being open topped, although of course they get a fair increase in points of 5 points there. Now that's just in line with Warlord's general unit pricing, I believe. However, why do I think this is important? Well, first of all, the 222 is a really popular, if not the most popular, German armoured car. Not because it's the best, but because it looks so damn good. If you're a German player, you want one of these in your collection. Now, on top of that, the reason why I think they've done the update is because possibly of this little guy, the Humber armoured car. Now, what makes me say this, and remember, 100% speculation here, but the 222 and the Humber Mark IIs or the Mark IV face off against each other in the Gentleman's War starter set, which is of course Warlord's current starter set that you buy with a mate and split the forces. One person gets the Brits, one person gets the Germans. However, I can imagine new players, the German player seeing that his armoured car is vulnerable to small arms fire. It can be pinned up by the British infantry. However, he can do no such thing in return to the Humber, which might leave a slightly bitter taste in the German player's mouth. And believe me, German player, there's more of it to come. However, regardless of that, it's a quality of life update. It doesn't make a massive amount of sense when you look at the 222 model. It's got a little grill on top of it. It's not really, it's pretty much, it's open top, guys. But regardless of that, I can get behind this rule update. I think it's very interesting. And, the 222, its main, and, all those armoured cars, they're really going to be either fighting infantry or because of the short range of their weapons on the main part, they're going to be at least within range of infantry pinning them up. They're not sitting at the back sniping or anything like that. So being immune to pins now, that's going to be a huge deal. Next up, highlighted in green, we've got the Commandos LMG team. Now, this is a cool little unit. I personally don't run Commandos, but I like the look of these guys. It's a 2-man squad. You can only take them veterans 65 points, and they get a Vickers LMG, which fires as many shots as a normal MMG, so 5 shots. So essentially what you're looking at here is a 2-man MMG team that can move and shoot. It's not fixed, it's a team weapon. So cool little addition. You don't have to run Commandos. You can run this in any British force. Obviously, you'd want to run it in a themed list, I think. But yeah, just cool. I wasn't aware. Maybe that already existed and they've changed the points. I wasn't aware of it as a unit, so just thought I'd point it out. Next up, we've got a little buff for the Poles. Polish sniper team. So now the Poles can take a normal sniper unit like anybody else. Up until now, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, they could only take a marksman, which was effectively a 1-man sniper unit for a small point reduction. So nice option to have there. Let me know in the comment section down below if I'm missing something with that. Next up, we have another interesting one for a minor faction. It's all about the minor factions this time, and it's the Hungarians who get a buff this time. And you will hear cheering from the rooftops from the Hungarian players, because finally their cavalry can assault like any other unit. They also get to take a Panzerfaust for 10 points or an LMG for 20 points. Although I believe probably if it's anything like other cavalry, they won't be able to shoot that Panzerfaust unless they dismount. But nonetheless, that's not the headline. The headline is Hungarian cavalry can now charge. Although sadly it will be a death to all of the memes surrounding that previously saw topic. And that's not all for the Hungarians. They've had another buff as well, which is they can take a flamethrower team at regular or veteran now. So it's really coming up well for the Hungarians. If you've been sat on the fence about a Hungarian faction, now may well be the time to pull the trigger on that. Now we're on to the frequently asked questions. So first off, a very interesting one. You may have seen my video a couple of weeks ago about trick shots with snipers, and Warlord have been kind enough to clarify one of the rule questions surrounding that, which is now if you shoot a sniper unit at an artillery unit and kill one of the crew members, and the crew member that you select takes the unit out of coherency, which would previously have forced them to do a run order, you could have interpreted the rules that way, so they wouldn't have got to fire next shot. Now, Warlord have clarified that regardless of the coherency of an artillery unit, it can be given an advance order to reposition the artillery, which of course allows it to take a shot at a -1 in the same turn. So very interesting clarification there, and certainly a fair one. I couldn't agree more with that. I think that's, very much in the spirit of the game. And, you know, I don't think most people are going to complain about that. There might be some competitive German players out there, you know, shaking their fists at the sky because they have that sniper they like to take with the 2 shots. That's really good at handling artillery. But apart from those people, I think everyone's probably going to agree with that. Next up, just a simple one. In close combat, if you get whatever damage result, if you manage to damage a vehicle, it only takes the pins from the result on the table. I think that was pretty clear already, because you don't take pins from close combat, but you know, Warlord have clarified that for the newer players, which I think is really useful. Next up, we've got a question. I intended to move a wheeled armoured vehicle. When turning the vehicle, I rotated on the vehicle's centre and then measured the move distance from its hull. My opponent felt this was wrong, as by rotating on the centre I gained 1 to 2 inches due to the length of the vehicle. My opponent suggested measurement should be taken from the centre of the vehicle. Well, your opponent is obviously just super gamey and, like, come on. Of course you get that extra movement from rotating the vehicle. It's just, why would you even question that? But there you have it. You know, the Warlord, it's not in the spirit of the game to be like that. You know, you move your vehicle, don't think too much about it. Finally, we've got a very specific question about Mountaineers and whether they get to strike first, assaulting through cover. Long story short, they do. That is all the general frequently asked questions that they've updated there. However, we do have a couple more interesting little bits here. So if a unit has 2 flamethrowers and it hits a unit with both of those flamethrowers, they only take D3 plus 1 pins, not 2 D3 plus 2 pins, and they don't take the fear check twice, which again, I think is pretty straightforward. You know, when you shoot at a unit, if you get hit by an LMG and a rifle, you don't take the pins from the LMG, it pins from the rifle. It's just not the way the game works, but it's good to have the clarification there, you know, especially with those double flamethrower units. They're powerful enough as it is, if you know what I mean. Finally, a little FAQ from the Germans is quite interesting. So if you've got, I think this is quite an odd rule, but we'll go with it. So this is really the only part of the FAQ that I am questioning as valid right now, because it basically says that Tiger Fear does not affect passengers in a truck because they don't have line of sight to it, because obviously passengers are removed from they're counted as off the table, and therefore they don't have line of sight to anything, and they can't shoot out of open top transport, so on and so forth. But it's just in-game sort of representative of the truck driver sort of seeing the Tiger, and he's been given orders to drop the men off in a certain position, and he's like, I'm just not going to say anything. You know, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and drive towards this Tiger and not tell the chaps in the back, which, you know, that's just not cricket, if you ask me. So guys, I'm going to call it there. I'm not going to go into depth in the campaign book erratas, the map upgrades and that kind of thing, or any of the other minor rules or unit additions. That's the interesting stuff for sure. I'll leave a link in the description below, so if you want to read the FAQ in greater detail, you can find it there for yourselves. But yeah, I just want to finish the video by giving a big shout out to our members. Thanks so much for your support, guys. Obviously, you know it means the world to us. And also thank you to everyone out there who's watching the videos, liking, subscribing and commenting down below. The channel's really gained some traction in the last couple of months, and you know, we're working on with Warlord on a couple of projects, some very exciting news coming up in the next couple of weeks, let me tell you. But with all that being said, I hope you found this video interesting and entertaining. This has been the Scholar Progenium. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.